Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Module 4. Previously in our last class, we discussed about culture, social change, and education. Presently now, we are moving to Module 4, where we need to discuss about sociological theory and education. Every field of study has their own theoretical perspective, but for the sake of our study, we need to go deeply into two major theories to analyze what social interaction and educational life is all about. Stay tuned as we connect to the next slide. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. On this segment, this special unit, we're going to talk about social learning theory. But before I go into details of what social learning theory is, I would like us to understand what theory is all about. Theory is a set of principles on which practice of an activities is based. We can also refer theory as a rational type of abstract thinking about a phenomenon or the result of such thinking. It's what we call it now is what abstract thinking about a what phenomenon or the result of such thinking. So to say, we can also refer theory as a careful thought out explanation for observations of the natural world that has been constructed using the scientific method and which brings together many facts and hypotheses. What do we call it? It brings together many facts and hypotheses. Theory always allows us to explain what we see and to figure out how to bring about change. You see, theory is very important for us to understand more details about learning. We need to engage theory in our teaching methodology because we could remember vividly. I would say sociology is all about what? Is scientific study. And when you are engaging in scientific study of a particular phenomenon, you are going to engage yourself in using some particular theory to analyze and to explain that fact. For instance, now what happened recently at Dovin College in Lagos, a particular social learning theory can use to analyze what really occurred. As we can see, that some facts are coming up from various social media, making blame to the hostel master, the principal, the teacher, or what have you. So, various theories can be used to analyze what really transpired for bullying a child in school, especially boarding school children. I believe by now we understand what theory is all about. Now, let's move into social learning theory. Social learning theory is being propounded by Albert Bandura. He is one of the major proponents of this theory. And this theory is based on the idea that every individual learns from their interaction with others in a social context. They learn from what? From every individual and the interaction they have in a social context. By so doing, they observe other people's behavior, how people develop similar new character in the society. So according to this social learning theory, people learn by observing what people do, considering the apparent consequence experienced by those people, realizing what might happen in their own life, in the fellow other people's behavior, taking action at trying the behavior themselves, and also confirming their belief in the new behavior. According to this theory, which is being propounded by Bandura, it engages observational learning, imitation, and behavior modeling. Social learning theory is based on the idea that observational learning involves the fact that humans often cannot learn for themselves alone. That is to say, what this theory is trying to tell us is that man cannot live in isolation. Man needs to learn from the social interaction from which he or she gain from every social action that happens in the society. This particular theory combines behavioral reinforcement theory and cognitive psychology to describe the learning process in individuals. At this level, the learner has the power to influence their own learning in new situations by controlling the environment around them, whether that environment is imposed, selected, or constructed. I've explained earlier that this theory can be used to analyze what happened in Doven College at Lekki. Because there have been some interaction between the pupils, the junior and the senior, which has been going on and on internally, with the school administrator held with levity hand. You can make a reference point to all this that is going on in a secondary school. Secondary school pupil beating up teachers, beating up a police officer, tearing their clothes, this and that. This has been moving on in the society. So this theory enables us to understand the major role the peer group influences have on each other fellows. As a teacher, you have a role to play. The students are watching you. By so doing that, they will have something to gain from you, either positively or negatively. That is why teachers have been made reference to as in loco parentensis. You have been seen at their parents as their role model, because this pupil will learn one or two things from you, either directly or indirectly. They will imitate you. Either they imitate you or imitate their fellow colleagues. And pupils, children, easily adapt to whatever that happens in the society. Let's say, for instance, now, some group of people, or some group of pupils rather, might decide not to be attending assembly ground. They might decide to be commonly jumping the fence. While some are so diligent that they follow their set of group to go to the class, to the assembly at the appropriate time, reading the national anthem, doing other activities on the assembly ground before going to the class in the morning. Social learning theory will enable us to analyze some facts that is going on in the society, in the educational institution. So, for this class, I believe we can understand what theory is by now and what social learning theory is. I would love to move to the next slide to discuss labeling theory. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions. You can send your questions to my email at lawakeke@aski.edu.ng. Thank you very much once again. Welcome to another unit on sociological theory and education. Now we are on labeling theory. from the word label. This word labeling theory is being coined from the word label, to tag somebody with a particular thing. This labeling theory is a sociological perspective known as symbolic interaction, which is a school of thought of the idea of John Dewey, Charles Cooley, Albert Blumer, among others. The theory emphasizes that meaning arises in social interaction through communication, use of language, and symbols. The focus of this perspective is the interaction between individuals in the society, which is the basis for meaning within that society. As the word connotes, labeling theory, some students might be labeled for a particular act or behavior in the school environment. Let's say, for instance, now, in the class, you have a classroom setting which is being arranged hierarchically, starting from the class captain, from the teacher to the class captain, then to the member of the class. The class captain might be saddled with the responsibility of writing names of noisemakers. If a particular name occurs too much on noisemakers list, such person might be labeled to be a perpetual noisemaker. Or maybe late coming to school, that you are being beaten today, being sanctioned tomorrow for late coming, you might be tagged a perpetual late comer. And that might be a form of stigma to that person. Oh, Derry the late comer, Derry the perpetual noisemaker, Derry the... by so doing, you are labeling that particular student to a particular deviant behavior that is not in conformity with the school rules and regulation. By so doing, such students might see he or herself being acting not in conformity or not in alliance with other members of the classroom. And this stigma might go on and on, which might really affect the pupil in the class. So as a teacher, let's try and avoid this type of labeling, because it goes a long way in the life of the pupil. So this theory enables us to understand that there are various deviant behavior in classroom, deviant or criminal behavior in classroom. Let's say, for instance, now maybe something is missing in the class, maybe a biro, a pencil. You make a search around, you find out that a particular pupil stole it. Then maybe after a week or two, something of such happen again. You find out that that particular student stole such thing. You know, before you know it, that student will be tagged as a thief, and it might make such pupil to go wild. So this theory enables us to understand such behavior in classroom setting. And if any student engages in any antisocial behavior within the school environment, such student will always be tagged a troublemaker. And if any such student behave so rudely to a particular teacher, or a particular student behave so bad that the school have to write down such name in what is called a black book, by so doing, you've labeled that particular student. So this theory will enable us to understand vividly how to manage such situation in the classroom setting or in the school at large. So thank you very much for the teaching so far. So good. We've talked about the two major theories that's very important to sociology of education: social learning theory and labeling theory. As we go through this course, the Lord will see us through. Thank you. And once again, if you have any question, just send it to my mail directly. I'm open to further explanation. Thank you. See you in the next module class. Bye.